an oldie but goodie, um, between Ice Cube and these ladies from last year. I think it was called something with the Queens or breakfast or cocktails with the Queen. Um, I want to find out whether or not if you guys can hear this. Can you guys hear this?
Dealing with our situation.
Can y'all hear that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So let me. I gotta ask this question. Because you're on this show with cocktails with the Queen. And there's a reason for that. It wasn't to have you defend or not defend Donald Trump. It was about I care about what's in this contract with Black America for Women, and it's not. We're not mentioning it all in the contract with Black America.
I mean, when you mention black people, you mentioning black women. So don't count yourself out.
No, that's not true.
Just like administration said that when they
black
make
people is not black women. Black women are not included in black people.
No,
Well,
that's like you saying. That's like when the president says minorities, then he's including black people. But we all know that that's not the case. Black women have specific needs that are not also being met. And we also feel that there should be some things that are specific to us and our plight as well. And
I understand that.
I feel like as a black man, you can lead.
No,
I feel like
I just offered y'all to write a section up for it. I just said I don't mind if you guys help us. If you guys help us write a section. No, I've been open to all kind of experts in putting this together. It wasn't just me. We dealt with experts in all fields of this contract with Black America. So we're willing to deal with experts in the section when it comes to women. So that's no problem.
Okay,
I'll help you write it. I'll help you write it.
Say you do get the money. How soon do you think your plan is going to go into effect?
Okay. So I think that's enough. My nose is bleeding. I'm joking. Anyhow, I put this in here because we had extensive discussions about this whole thing, and obviously you can tell they felt a kind of way about the Republican Party or the right or what have you, even though Q was saying that he was nonpartisan. He just wanted to go with whoever will be able to go along with his contract with Black America. So this kind of leads into my question. What issues you think that Black American women voters have with the Republican Party or conservatives? Let's start with Sandog.
Look, like all of this will be something that will come out of narrative. So, for example, within African American culture, just like what T. West was saying and what the Reverend was mentioning and the other brothers, what happens is that there's a knee-jerk reaction to kind of push away things, traditional things that have worked for us in the past, our old culture. So I'm from Brooklyn, but my family is from the South, right? And so, again, I remember being a young boy, going to Selma, Alabama. If there's 10 days in a week, I was in church for 7 of them. Right, so my aunt, like I said, Sunday mornings we would wake up, we would have devotion, then breakfast, then you'll go to Sunday school, and then fellowship with the pastor, and again all these different things. And so what happened was, in Black America, there became a thing where as these values were quote and unquote were more associated or began to become more associated with white people, there will be a knee-jerk reaction from Black America to go into an opposite direction, right? In order to establish an identity that will be separate from that, based upon my knowledge and my observation of history. So now when you, like, for example, you get into the 1960s, right? What happens? The feminist movement, the free love movement, and all of that comes as somewhat of a counterbalance or counter movement to divert you away from the civil rights movement. And so as you move on more and more to the future, all of this stuff ends up becoming culture. So when you talk about like Pat Buchanan's book, The Suicide of a Superpower, when he talked about at one time, across America, despite all the differences, there was this one value system that everybody had across the United States, a moral code. And basically that inability or that lack of desire for America to kind of settle the debts of its original sin. If you look at it from a historical perspective, this is where we kind of gotten to where we are, you know, and like I said, in the midst of all of this. And so now, for example, and another thing that happens within a Black community, again, what I'm looking at certain things that happen to us, it's almost like Aesop's fables with the fox and the grapes. So if I believe, so the fox couldn't reach the grapes, right? And so when the fox figured that he couldn't reach the grapes, he was like, those grapes aren't worth anything anyway. And so for Black America, we have a bad habit of, when we think something is unachievable, or if we cannot meet that standard, then we will be like that fox and the grapes, and we'll end up pushing it away. Although the grapes may be what potentially at that moment could be the best thing for us. And so this is, this is a stance that Black America would have to evolve or get itself out of. You know, just like Dr. Randy Short was saying, and I agree with him personally. Again, you need to be present across the spectrum. You have to have, or what Ice Cube was trying to do, you have to have a utilitarian attitude in regards to dealing with this system, right? So it's like when I first came to the space, I said, we have to start looking at politics like the human body, right? So if the Republican Party is a diet, right, that diet has certain things that are good for you, certain things that are bad for you. If the Democratic Party is a diet, there are certain things that are good and certain things that are bad. And so you arrange your plate for dinner or breakfast accordingly to what your body needs. And so I think, so from my perspective, what happens is that within our culture, or especially amongst our female folks, we have to kind of push past our own personal feelings, right? So when there's, when there's a standard or obligations that have to be met, we have to push past our own personal feelings and understand that, hey, this is how the world works. This is what we need to function to be competitive. And this, ultimately, this is what it is. So like and I'll say this and I'll shut up. So for example, when you look at China, for example, or the Chinese, right? What the Chinese say, right? They dealt with colonialism and these things too. And China said, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to achieve a standard, right? So what happens is once you achieve a standard, you become that standard. And then once you surpass the standard, you yourself are the standard. And so for those of us, and I'm jumping the gun on a future point that I would like to make, but for those of us in the Black community, what those of us who are Black Republicans are arguing, right? Because then I think we get too emotional, is that ultimately what we're arguing from our Republican perspective is that, for many of us, there is a healthy respect of what the environment has introduced, right? But you have what's called the internal and external locus of self-control. You heard me say this, Art, a few times. And so what those of us on the Republican Party may be saying is that, you know what? I control my own outcomes, right? Whereas others will say, well, the environment will dictate the outcome. And the truth is that it's somewhere down the middle, right? And so for Black America, you have to be open to all ideas. You cannot reject all ideas. You have to have a utilitarian attitude towards this. And I'll say this in closing, because if the Republican Party is this all-consuming evil racist force, why do you let it operate unabated if it's such a threat to you? Because I would imagine that you would want to put as many people in that room when those conversations are being held as much as possible, if nothing more, to look out for your own best interest, right? So again, if this is the case and this is the way that we feel, so we have to start moving from emotional arguments and narrative and start making decisions based on fact with a utilitarian outlook.
Okay. All right. So appreciate you. And those people out there, please hit that like button, share, subscribe. Try to get through. I guess obviously we can't get through all the questions. But we're going to have Reverend Childers weigh in. I believe you have one of your parishioners in the chat.
possible, wondering what I'm doing. But basically, if you're going back to the original question, I think what I heard was that basically what women.
Yeah, what are, I mean, like, because we don't talk about our sisters in particular.
Right.
Like, what, let me see.
Well, I would like to interject.
Let me make sure I get it right, so you'll be able to hit it on the nail here. It was mainly, what issues do you think the Black American women voters have with the Republican Party or conservatives in general?
The issues, I think, basically, I think for African American women who basically unquestionably take the brunt out of all the policies that have failed African Americans, should once again really have a consortium. They should mobilize to get back to the basics, more or less. And when I say the basics, is what my brother expressed, that strong affinity to faith, that strong faith mentality, and also take down the industries that have caused them to be looked at as depraved individuals who have diminished women. I think African American women have changed more than African American men. There were certain lines drawn in the sand when it came to sexuality, and when it came to their own respect for themselves. I found out that women are buying rap music that is degrading them more so than anything else in the song, but yet they're buying this. So I think unquestionably that the sexualization of our children, which mothers are the chief agent of the social strata when it comes to introducing children to the world, is also basically tied to the party that is pushing the LGBT agenda on our children in our school system, and also that is basically degrading women in the music world, the entertainment world. I wanted to say this, no question. Somebody challenged me on that. If women said, we're not going to buy rap music any longer, that degrades women. If women said that unless these men carry themselves with respect, the store will be closed, things will be changed overnight. Okay. Women have that power, and they need to recognize they have been more open towards promiscuity, towards basically vile music, and music that does not really in any way, form, or fashion cause them to be used as the palace that the scripture says that they are. They have lowered their standard far more so than men. As one preacher said, men have always been what they have been evolved today. It's women that lowered the standard. So, but what has been the chief advocate of that? It has been the legislation, the party, the school system that has basically indoctrinated much of our children to accept this liberal agenda and to diminish faith in in their daily experience. So I think women should take issue with the party when it comes to how women are looked at in in Hollywood, in entertainment, and also basically that they could recognize that if they're going to write an agenda, which ICE told them they should write it, which they were seemingly reluctant to do, which was kind of scary to me. But
Right.
saying we want to get back to that moral base where obviously the degrading and the diminishing of women in their role as the chief agents of the introduction of our children to society has been deeply diminished, deeply. But they've changed far more so than men.
Okay. Dr. Short, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So did you hear the question?
Yes, and I'll just say it right out. The problem with Black women in America is feminism. The feminism from the left, and it has really destroyed the character and nature of Black women in this country. And that is, feminism is heavily driven from the left. So that's whether it's killing babies, whether it's being a lesbian, whether it's being transgender. All of this stuff is connected to the feminist movement.
Mm-hmm.
The feminist movement is supported by the deep state, and it has undermined the Black family. This has been understood, and feminism is white female supremacy. And many Black women are basically independent contractors to white supremacist feminism, making them enemies of the Black family, enemies of God, enemies of Black men,
And marriage.
enemies of Black women, enemies of the unborn, all in the name of female empowerment. The same white women that tell Black women they don't need a man have high rates of marriage, lower rates of divorce, lower rates of abortion. And so Black women have been weaponized against themselves and their people under the name of Black female freedom and women being strong. And it's wrong. By the way, I worked for the late C. Dolores Tucker, one of the greatest Black women leaders that we've ever produced, who was standing up against vulgar music and the dehumanization and degradation of Black women through music. And she didn't have the kind of support she should have had from Black self. Black American women are entitled, spoiled, and have no concept of how many liberties they have vis-a-vis men compared to other demographics of men and women. It's a ungrateful, unhappy culture, which they get from feminism, that everything is wrong. Being married is wrong. Being a housewife is wrong.
Can you hear me?
Going to PTA is wrong. Loving a man, cooking a dinner for a man is wrong.
Oh.
Having sex when the man wants to have sex is wrong. So we have generations of women who've been victims of feminist menticide. And by the way, the objection to the Republican Party is they associated with what's called patriarchy. Well, what the hell are we supposed to have? Not have men in the home? Which is what we've got. So all the things that the folks bitch and moan about is a result of the removal of patriarchy from our culture.
You got it. All right. And Brother T. West.
Well, guys, I'm going to be brief here. So what issues Black American women voters have? What do they have with the Republican Party or conservative? Well, look, there's a difference between male and female. Generally, we're geared differently and about various things. Now, I know some scientists, a lot of people in the media, they want to say there's no difference, and then there's the problem. The problem is you have mainstream media that have and is continuing to condition people. And in this case, we're talking about Black women. They have conditioned Black women to see things a certain way, to think a certain way. They have conditioned Black women to believe and think that one party over here at least in the last 80 years or so, this particular political party has given you this. Now, when we talk about the difference between male and female, women tend to orient themselves towards the object, the thing. Materialism. They're more materialistic than men in general. Now you have men, yes, who are materialistic in their way too. But most men are materialistic because they're trying to appease a woman. Oh, if I had a nicer car, if I had a bigger house, if I had more bling bling, I would attract more women. So men are less object oriented in the case of where they're not really psychologically driven by trying to appease the opposite sex. Okay? That's okay. I agree. You know, you should appease the opposite sex. That's natural.
Mm-hmm.
That's natural. That's good. But anything in excess is not good. So what you have is the massive mainstream media pushing and promoting certain ideologies. And if the black woman, and they do, if the black woman is listening and looking at them and what they're saying, they're going to very often go down that path. They're going to follow the object. And the Democrat Party is saying, we've got this for you, we've got that for you. Here's the object. Here's a thing that you want. Here's a free phone. Here's a free this, a free that. Okay? But nothing is free. Nothing is free. You know, here's the apple. See this apple? Yeah, take it. It's free. It's good. It's good. So this is the temptation of the other sex, the temptation that is presented to the females. And only a few females will not go for that. Only a few. You know, the old saying, her price is far greater and higher than rubies. Okay, virtuous woman. Okay, so we have to look at that. And the other thing too, at the top of the mess, let me dab on the males. At the top of the mess are very often, most often, men. You know, leading captive, stealing women. Okay, so you have that situation as well. So we can't just pick on women. No. Can't do that. You've got to have a more intelligent approach to this. It's not as simplistic as that. You know, historically, women have been easy targets. And sometimes what you see and you experience is the blowback. White men treated their women badly for such a very, very long time. And traditionally in Africa, you didn't have, you know, the type of mess you see that has been happening historically between European men and European women. Now, you got some of it in Africa because colonialism came up in there. You had Christianity that came up in there. You had Islam that came up in there. So you got some of that where they, in some respects, oppressed women. But from that, I'll close with this. From that, when you do these things, you've got to realize, men, you're going to get blowback. And part of what we're looking at and witnessing today is blowback. I'm done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just want to.
Well, before you go, Brother Sandal, Dr. T. West, are you under a fan or something, or an electrical fan?
Yes. You can hear that in the background, right?
Yeah, everybody thinks that somebody's driving. So I don't know. I don't want you to burn to death either. So I don't know how you be able to stay cool.
Okay, continue on.
Okay. So, all right. So, Sandal, you want to weigh in?
Yeah. So, you know, again, it's kind of like what I said. Like this was like, you know, back conversations that I've had, like I said, that I've had with many other people, right? Because I know, you know, in the space, you know, a lot of us will want to kind of like, you know, I guess, you know, in a sense, you know, have like criticisms for the women, you know, following following these types of ideologies. But what African American men need to know is that we've never had our own state. So let's say, for example, you know how, you'll hear like a lot of young men will say, okay, well, I'm dating Latino women because they're more cooperative, right? Or I'm dating this other group of women because they're more cooperative. The difference is that if a woman is born in Guatemala or if a woman is born in Nigeria, no matter how good or bad those countries are, she's seen the men that look like her make the decisions from the top to the bottom. So if I'm a Nigerian girl, right, and I come out on that Nigerian soil, since the day I was born, good, bad, or indifferent, that country was ran by a Nigerian man. So there's going to be levels of respect. Whereas if you're an African American woman, when you opened up your eyes, right, the top dog was somebody on that plantation, right? And then your fathers, your brothers, maybe they didn't even place at all, right? In terms of, in terms of hierarchy, right? So when people talk about, well, how can our women or how could some of us get absorbed in these issues, right? We've never been in a space where you would have your own state, where you could develop your own identity, your own culture, so on and so forth. So this is where the African American community is in the states of confusion that it's in. So you have to remember that what you call an African American woman, right? When she opened her eyes for the first time out of the womb, right? Again, her owner was staring down at her, not the king of her tribe or the king of a government that will represent her as an adult. So I think that this is something. I think that this is something that we have to weigh. That's played a part in our relationships.
All right, good brother.